The autumn wind carried a woman's cry through the untamed valleys of Colorado Territory, 1876, as Katherine Adams clutched her infant son close to her chest and stumbled through the wilderness, her tattered dress catching on brambles with each desperate step. The brutal mountain winter was approaching fast, and with nowhere to turn after fleeing her husband's violent rage back in Denver, she prayed for a miracle as the first snowflakes began to fall. Logan Jensen was tracking a wounded elk when he heard the cries. At 32, he'd spent most of his adult life in solitude, homesteading in these mountains after returning from the war with scars both visible and hidden. The lone cabin he built with his own hands stood as testament to his desire for isolation until fate intervened on that cold November afternoon. Following the sound, Logan spotted a figure collapse beneath a towering pine. Katherine was shivering violently, her thin shawl providing little protection against the elements. But what caught his attention most was how fiercely she protected the bundle in her arms, a baby, no more than 6 months old, with rosy cheeks and a dimpled smile that somehow radiated warmth despite the bitter cold. "Madam," Logan called softly, approaching with his hands visible to avoid frightening her. "You need help." Katherine's eyes, though exhausted, flashed with protective instinct. "Stay back," she warned, her voice hoarse. "I've got a cabin half a mile from here. Fire's going. Food. You and your boy won't last the night out here." Logan gestured toward the darkening sky. "Storm's coming in fast." As if to emphasize his point, the snowfall intensified. The baby whimpered, and Katherine's resolve wavered. Death awaited them in these woods, and this stranger with kind eyes was offering sanctuary. "My name's Logan Jensen," he said, removing his coat and carefully draping it over her shoulders. "I promise you'll be safe." Katherine studied his weathered face, searching for deceit but finding only genuine concern. "Katherine Adams?" she finally whispered. "And this is Samuel." As if recognizing his name, the baby's face broke into a dimpled smile that made Logan's heart skip. It had been many years since he'd felt such an immediate connection to another soul. "Let's get you both warm," Logan said, carefully helping Katherine to her feet. By the time they reached Logan's cabin, the storm had escalated into a full blizzard. The modest one-room structure was simple but solid, with a large stone fireplace casting golden light across hand-hewn furniture. A cast iron stove radiated heat from the corner, and furs lined the wooden floors. "It's not much," Logan said, suddenly self-conscious of his bachelor accommodations. Katherine sank gratefully into a chair by the fire, cradling Samuel against her chest. "It's everything we need right now." Logan busied himself preparing a simple stew, stealing glances at the mother and child. Katherine's dark hair had fallen loose from its pins, framing a face that, despite exhaustion and fear, possessed a quiet strength that moved him. "He has his father's dimples," Katherine said softly, noticing Logan's gaze on Samuel. "But I pray that's all he inherits from him." Logan nodded, understanding the unspoken story in her words. "The little one seems to have your smile, though. Brightest thing I've seen in these mountains in a long while." Katherine's eyes welled with tears. "I had nowhere else to go. James, my husband, he..." Her voice broke. "You don't need to explain," Logan assured her. "Not tonight. Tonight you rest." After they'd eaten, Logan insisted Katherine take his bed while he made a pallet by the fire. As he helped her settle in, Samuel's tiny hand caught one of Logan's fingers in a surprisingly strong grip. The baby gazed up with wide, trusting eyes, and those dimples appeared again with a smile that pierced straight through Logan's carefully constructed defenses. That night, as the storm raged outside and Katherine and Samuel slept soundly in his bed, Logan sat by the fire contemplating how his solitary life had been upended in a matter of hours. For the first time in years, the crushing loneliness that had been his constant companion seemed to lift slightly, replaced by something unexpected purpose. Morning brought clear skies and pristine snow-covered landscapes. Katherine awoke to find Logan already up, tending to his morning chores. Samuel was nestled beside her, cooing happily at the dancing shadows on the cabin wall. "I thought I dreamed you," she admitted when Logan returned with an armful of firewood. After days of running, finding safety seemed impossible. How long were you out there? Logan asked, stoking the fire. 3 days. We hid in a freight car from Denver, then started walking when the train stopped to take on water. Catherine's voice trembled. James will come looking eventually. He's not a man who accepts losing what he considers his property. Logan's jaw tightened. You're not property. In the eyes of the law, a wife belongs to her husband. Even one who. She trailed off, unconsciously touching a fading bruise at her wrist. Logan approached and carefully sat at the edge of the bed. As long as you're here, you're under my protection. Both of you. Why would you risk yourself for strangers? Katherine asked, genuinely puzzled by his kindness. Logan looked at Samuel, who was now attempting to grab his own toes. Maybe I'm tired of being alone, he admitted. Or maybe some things are just worth fighting for. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Logan hunted and tended to his livestock while Katherine kept the cabin in order. In the evenings, they talked by firelight, slowly revealing pieces of themselves to each other. Logan shared how he'd fought for the Union, returning to find his family farm in Missouri taken by the bank. With nothing left, he'd headed west to start over, eventually settling in this remote valley where memories couldn't find him. Katherine told him of her life in Boston, how she'd met James Adams when he came east seeking investors for his mining operations. Their whirlwind courtship had seemed like a romantic adventure until they reached Denver, where James revealed his true nature: controlling, jealous, and eventually violent. Samuel's birth should have been the happiest day of my life, Katherine confessed one evening as she rocked the baby to sleep. Instead, James was furious that I'd given him a son instead of attending a dinner with potential investors. That was the first night he struck me. Logan's hands clenched around his coffee cup. No man worthy of the name raises his hand to a woman. Katherine's eyes met his across the small cabin. I know that now. As December deepened, so did their connection. Logan found himself enchanted not only by Katherine's resilience but by her quick mind and gentle humor that emerged as she felt safer. Katherine discovered in Logan a man whose quiet strength came from compassion rather than domination. And Samuel, with his infectious laugh and dimpled smile, became the sun around which they both orbited. Logan crafted a wooden cradle for the boy, carving intricate forest animals along its sides. Katherine caught him more than once simply watching Samuel sleep, a look of wonder on his face. He likes you, Katherine observed one afternoon as Samuel babbled happily in Logan's arms while he read aloud from one of his dog-eared books. Smart kid, Logan replied with a rare grin. The first time Logan saw fear return to Katherine's eyes was when riders approached the cabin 2 weeks before Christmas. He just returned from checking his trap lines when he spotted Katherine at the window, pale and trembling. Take Samuel to the root cellar, he instructed calmly, reaching for his rifle. Stay there until I come for you. Katherine hesitated. Logan, if it's James, it's not your husband, he assured her after glancing outside. Just some trappers I know. But until we're certain it's safe, I'd feel better with you both out of sight. The visitors turned out to be brothers who occasionally traded with Logan. After assuring himself they weren't connected to Denver or James Adams, Logan invited them in, explaining he had guests staying with him, a widowed cousin and her baby, seeking a fresh start after tragedy. The trappers accepted the story without question, sharing news from the nearest settlement before continuing on their way. When they were gone, Logan retrieved Katherine and Samuel from their hiding place. You called me your cousin, Katherine said, bouncing a fussy Samuel on her hip. Seemed simpler than the truth. Logan hung his hat on its peg. Does it bother you? Katherine shook her head. No. But it reminds me that eventually, I'll need a story of my own. A new identity where James can't find us. That evening, as Samuel slept in his cradle, Logan proposed a solution. There's a settlement 3 days' ride from here. Small, but growing. Has a church, school. You could start fresh there. Katherine felt her heart sink at the thought of leaving the cabin, leaving Logan. Yes, I suppose that would be wise. I know the preacher there. Logan continued, staring into the fire. Good man. Discreet. Could help with papers, a new name maybe. You've thought about this? Logan nodded. Been thinking on it since you arrived. He hesitated, then added quietly. Been thinking on a lot of things. The silence between them grew heavy with unspoken words until Katherine finally broke it. I should turn in. Tomorrow's washing day. Logan watched her retreat to the bed they still took turns using, though he'd offered multiple times to build a proper bedstead for himself. Some invisible line had been drawn between them, a line of propriety that neither had crossed despite the intimacy of sharing such close quarters. That night, lying on his pallet by the dying fire, Logan made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, Katherine woke to find Logan already gone, a note explaining he'd ridden to the settlement and would return in 2 days. The abrupt departure left her confused and slightly hurt, though she couldn't articulate why she should feel entitled to know his plans. When Logan returned as promised, his saddlebags were bulging with supplies, including a bolt of pretty blue fabric that made Katherine gasp with delight. For a new dress, he explained awkwardly. Thought you might like something besides what you arrived in. But it was the small package he pulled from his coat pocket that truly surprised her, a silver locket on a delicate chain. It's Christmas soon, Logan said, handing it to her. Didn't want the day to pass without something special for you both. Inside the locket was a tiny space just the right size for a lock of Samuel's dark hair. Katherine's eyes filled with tears as she clasped it around her neck. No one's given me a gift just because they wanted to in a very long time, she whispered. That evening, after Samuel was asleep, Katherine gave Logan his own gift, a hand-knitted scarf she'd been working on secretly during his absence, using yarn unraveled from one of her petticoats. It's not much, she apologized. Logan ran his fingers over the careful stitches. It's perfect. Their eyes met across the cabin, and for a moment, Katherine thought he might reach for her. Instead, Logan cleared his throat and moved to the door. Need to check on the horses, he said gruffly, disappearing into the night. Outside in the bitter cold, Logan struggled to bring his emotions under control. He'd gone to the settlement not just for supplies but to speak with the preacher about Katherine's situation. What he hadn't expected was how the solution that emerged would tear him apart inside. When he returned to the cabin, Katherine was sitting by the fire, her expression troubled. I need to tell you something, Logan said, settling across from her. I spoke with Preacher Wilson about your situation. Katherine tensed. And? He thinks the safest path is for you to have a husband. Katherine's face paled. I will not be forced into another marriage, not a real one, Logan quickly clarified. On paper only. A name to protect you and Samuel. The preacher would file the documents in a way that makes it seem you've been married for years. James Adams would have no legal claim then. I see, Katherine said slowly. And who would this paper husband be? Logan couldn't meet her eyes. There's a widower in the settlement. Older man, respectable. Owns the general store. Preacher says he'd be willing to help, give you his name legally without expectations. Katherine stared at him, her expression unreadable. And what about you, Logan? What happens to you in this plan? I'd still be here. You'd be safe in town, building a new life. Logan's voice was carefully neutral. It's the sensible choice. Sensible, Katherine repeated, the word falling like a stone between them. Katherine, is that what you want? She interrupted, suddenly fierce. For me to marry a stranger and live in town while you stay here alone? Logan finally looked at her, his composure cracking. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you and Samuel safe. It matters to me, Katherine insisted, rising from her chair. Tell me honestly, Logan. What do you want? The question hung in the air, demanding an answer Logan had been avoiding for weeks. Finally, he stood, crossing to where she waited. I want you to stay, he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. Both of you. Not as guests, not temporarily. I want to wake every morning knowing you're here. I want to watch Samuel grow. I want, he faltered, then gathered his courage. I want a life with you, Katherine. But I have no right to ask that of you. Katherine reached up, her palm resting against his cheek. And if I want the same thing? Logan covered her hand with his own. Then I'd say there's a much simpler solution than marrying you off to a stranger. The kiss that followed was tentative at first, then deepened into something that felt like coming home. When they finally parted, both were breathless. I never thought I'd feel safe with a man again, Katherine whispered. But from the moment you found us in that storm, something inside me recognized you not as a rescuer, but as a partner. Logan's forehead rested against hers. I've been alone so long, I forgot what it was to care for someone. Then you and Samuel appeared, and suddenly this cabin became a home. They were interrupted by Samuel's cry from his cradle. Katherine smiled. He has impeccable timing. As she moved to comfort the baby, Logan watched, overcome by the certainty that his solitary life had ended the moment this woman and child had entered it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, including the very real threat of James Adams, they would face them together. The following morning, Logan rode to the settlement again, this time with a different mission. He returned with Preacher Wilson, who performed a simple ceremony in the cabin with only the mountains and a delighted Samuel as witnesses. Katherine Adams became Logan Jensen, and Logan finally moved his belongings to the bed they would now share. The preacher filed paperwork backdating their marriage to before Samuel's birth, creating a legal shield that would make it nearly impossible for James to claim either of them. Winter deepened into January, and the newlyweds settled into a rhythm of shared work and tender nights. Logan began planning in addition to the cabin a proper bedroom for them, and eventually a room for Samuel when he grew older. "Do you think we'll have more children?" Katherine asked one evening as they lay entwined beneath the quilts. Logan's hand moved to rest on her stomach. "I'd like that. A whole cabin full of little ones with your smile and stubborn spirit. And your kindness," Katherine added, kissing him softly. "Your strength." February brought whispers of spring and unexpected visitors. Logan was repairing a fence when he spotted riders approaching 4 men, one leading a fine horse with an empty saddle. His blood ran cold as he recognized the description Katherine had given of James Adams: tall, expensively dressed, with a distinctive red beard. Logan sprinted back to the cabin, where Katherine was hanging laundry with Samuel strapped to her back. "Inside, now," he ordered, grabbing his rifle. "It's him." Katherine's face strained of color, but she moved quickly, securing the cabin door behind them. Logan positioned himself at the window, watching as the riders approached. "How did he find us?" Katherine whispered, clutching Samuel tightly. "Doesn't matter. He's not taking either of you." Logan's voice was steel. "The marriage is legal. You're my wife now, not his." The riders halted a respectful distance from the cabin. James Adams dismounted, straightening his fine coat before approaching. Logan stepped onto the porch, rifle visible but not aimed. "This is private property," Logan called. "State your business." James Adams offered an insincere smile. "I'm looking for my wife and child. Katherine Adams and my son Samuel." "I have reason to believe they're here." "No Katherine Adams here," Logan replied evenly. "Just my wife, Logan Jensen, and our son." James's face darkened. "I don't know what lies she's told you, but that woman is legally married to me." "Got paperwork says different," Logan countered. "Marriage certificate dated well before you claimed to have wed her. Our son's birth certificate with my name as father. All properly filed with territorial authorities. It was a bluff, the paperwork existed, but dated only weeks ago." Still, Logan knew James would have to take his challenge to court, a process that could take months and expose his abuse. James's composure slipped. "I want to see her." "That's not happening." "You have no right. I have every right to protect my family from a man they fled from in terror," Logan interrupted. "Now you can leave peacefully, or we can settle this another way. Your choice." The threat hung in the air, clear despite its lack of specificity. James's hand twitched toward his gun, but he hesitated when he saw Logan's steady grip on his rifle. "This isn't over," James snarled. "It is if you want to keep breathing," Logan replied quietly. "My wife has told me everything, Adams. Every bruise, every threat. You come near her or our boy again, they'll never find your body in these mountains." One of James's companions leaned over, speaking urgently in his ear. After a tense moment, James remounted his horse. "She isn't worth dying for," he spat, though his eyes betrayed uncertainty. "She's worth everything," Logan answered simply. The riders departed, James's rigid back radiating fury. Logan remained on the porch until they disappeared from sight, then hurried back inside where Katherine stood trembling, Samuel clutched to her chest. "He's gone," Logan assured her, setting his rifle aside to gather them both in his arms. "And he won't be back." "How can you be sure?" Katherine whispered against his shoulder. "Because men like him are cowards at heart. He wanted an easy victory, not a fight to the death." Logan stroked Samuel's head gently. "And because I meant what I said, you're both worth everything to me." That night, as they lay together listening to Samuel's peaceful breathing from his cradle, Katherine finally gave voice to feelings that had been growing since that first night Logan had brought them in from the storm. "I love you," she whispered. "I think I started falling in love with you when you looked at Samuel with such tenderness that first night." Logan's arms tightened around her. "I knew I loved you the moment I saw your strength. How you protected him with everything you had, even when you had nothing left to give." The threat of James Adams gradually receded as spring bloomed across the mountains. Logan and Katherine received word through traders that he had returned to Denver, his reputation damaged by rumors of his treatment of his runaway wife. Without proof that Katherine was truly his, he eventually abandoned his search, unwilling to suffer further embarrassment. By summer, the cabin addition was complete, and Katherine's belly had begun to swell with their second child. Samuel, now walking and chattering constantly, followed Logan everywhere, his father's shadow and most devoted admirer. "He still has your dimples," Logan observed one evening as he watched Katherine tuck their son into bed. "And that smile that lights up the whole mountain." Katherine joined him by the window, fitting herself against his side as they gazed out at the sunset painting the valley gold. "Do you ever regret it? Taking in a desperate woman and a baby that night?" Logan turned to her, his expression serious. "Not for a single moment. That night changed everything, brought life back to this cabin and to me. To think, all it took was a blizzard, a desperate escape, and a baby with irresistible dimples," Katherine teased. Logan's laugh was warm as he placed his hand on her growing belly. "I'd say it was worth the wait." As night fell over the mountains, the cabin glowed with lamplight, no longer a solitary outpost but a home filled with love that had begun on a snowy night when a cowboy took a mother and child into his cabin and, in doing so, found the family he never knew he wanted.